Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Philosophy Talks. This is our 28th seminar and third this year, this semester. We have today a very special guest. He's Dr. Oğuz Erdin. Maybe you can. He's a mathematician as well as a philosopher, and currently, in the field, he's working in the field of cognitive science. So today he will give us a talk on titled "Why Living Things Are Not Machines." And just to give a brief bio of Oğuz, Oğuz quit his theoretical physics PhD from Texas Austin University at the all but dissertation level, and then he returned to Istanbul and first of all had a master's degree on continental philosophy in big university. And for his PhD, he wanted to work on topics that are closer to the hard sciences. So he got interested in analytic philosophy and cognitive science. And he worked on the theory of interactivism in his PhD. And for his postdoc, he won the Fulbright Award and spent 8 months, I believe, in Pennsylvania with Mark Picard, who is the founder of the theory of interactivism. Please join me in welcoming him to the talk today.
Thank you for the nice introduction. So I will make a review basically. This is nothing original, not my research. I decided to talk about 3 counterexamples. All 3 of them are my favorites. And counterexamples to the standard view in mind, computer science, philosophy of mind, psychology, almost all related fields have this conception that, we see things, somehow representations happen in our brain. I see a door, there's a door picture in my brain, and then we make processes on it, we make inferences, computations, however you want to call it, and then we come to decisions, etc., and then there's output. Not only us, frogs even do that, bees, ants do that. So this is this huge view, still dominant, but there are more contenders now compared to, say, 40 years ago. And so I will present 3 famous counterexamples to this very intuitive understanding of how living things with nervous systems cognize, basically, survive and do whatever they are doing. And I will try to do, first I will try to show why we might not be digital computers, and then I will try to show why we might not be even robots with certain properties. And then it turns out that the hardest one is to show we are not even analog machines. We are not even like bicycles. Complicated, but nothing digital, yes, continuous, but not even that. And that requires much more recent empirical work in biology, actually, beginning from 2004 or something like that. So to do this, I have to define what a machine is, and I'm going to say all these properties of what machine is not working when it comes to living things. So the first famous example is from a paper in 1990s by Van Gelder. It's one of the most famous cognitive science papers for defending anti-representationalism. So Van Gelder says there are no representations at all in our minds. There are no pictures, nothing. And he gives this example that I'm going to give. And he immediately attacks the standard view, which is the computational view of the mind. So the task is this. It's Watt's governor, the 19th century, 18th century Watt, the famous engineer, and steam engines are invented. So they can burn fuel and steam comes out, but it is very hard to control it. You want a homogeneous non-changing invariant rotation. Because if you are going to drive a train, for example, or a manufacturing factory, you don't want the train to accelerate all of a sudden, stop all of a sudden, depending on how cool the wood is, what's the outside temperature. You want invariance from all those things. And also, if 100 people jump on the train, the same engine with the same wood or coal still has to produce the same homogeneous force. So under load, or when 100 people suddenly left, so all these problems have to be solved. So our intuitions, again, unlike Watts, because he grew up with computers, our intuition says this is simple. You write a program code. You measure what is the heat in the engine, you measure the load on the wheels or whatever machine you are. You compare them, you have a reference value, you subtract all those values. If it's less power available, computer says, okay, turn up the heat. So it's a code, step by step code. Each step is very simple, right? And then you do it. But Watt didn't have computers. Everything has to be analog. So he came up with an ingenious solution. He came up with these mechanical devices. So this is where the steam goes into the wheels and the rest of the machine. And this valve here controls how much steam is going. So if there is too much load, the machine has to turn it up so that more steam goes. How is it going to measure how fast it is going, how slow it is going? So he connected the wheels to this mechanical device which has two heavy balls, and when it rotates because of the wheels, these things go up or down because of centrifugal force. So it's like in the Luna Parks, right? It rotates. If it's fast, it's going to go up. If it's slow, so that going up and down with these mechanical links basically adjust this. So it automatically stabilizes. If the machine is going too fast for you, if you want it to slow it down, this will go up, it will turn it will make the door shut down a bit. If it slows too much, they will go, because of the rotation, the angle will be less, and this will open up more steam will, and then it will speed up again. So it's a feedback mechanism basically that tries to stabilize it around whatever you set for it, whatever Watt sets for it. So now one guy says, let's analyze this, because it is doing the exact same task as a computer does, with all its algorithms and measurements and representations and subtraction, multiplication, integration, whatever. There is no multiplication, you can't even stop this machine to understand what it is doing. It's cyclic, it's continuous. Everything is connected to everything instantly. There is no first step and second step. However you want to divide it, you can't find the first step here. First step is also the last step, or the second step. It's arbitrary. You can artificially impose steps to it, but it's not like a computer code that everything has to be in that step-by-step manner. So one guy that characterizes computation in these manners, which we talked about, and then he talks about homuncularity. Have you heard about the homuncular paradox, for example? Stuff like that. The abstract definition of homuncularity is, let's read it, is a special kind of breakdown of a system into parts or components, where each part has a particular subtext, which means, if you write a computer code, there are subprograms, or even the simple steps, right? Per subtext, particular subtext, and they interact by passing meaningful messages to each other. So the sensors measure the speed, force, etc. And it sends that message to the processor. Processor looks at memory. There is a meaningful message from memory. Then you can compare them and then do stuff like that. So there are departments basically, and these departments have to communicate with each other. So homuncular means little man. So it looks like there must be little men in each department talking to each other and organizing and accomplishing a particular task with a meaningful goal. So it looks like if you have a computational view, if you need these steps, then you must have this kind of homuncularity. You can't just, okay, I want to eliminate this, pick this, eliminate this. It's a cluster of properties where it's holistic. You either have all of them or none of them. Kind of situation. And the side track homuncular paradox is this applied to human understanding. I mean, this, I will be brief, just to. Homuncular paradox is basically how I get into philosophy of computer science. Because I was looking for a topic, and then Lucas, my advisor in Bonn, he heard about this homuncular paradox, and I was like, what's going on? So paradox is this: if I again look at the door, there's a lens in my eye, right? So the door is upside down, but smaller version is projected to the retina at the back. And then there's a transaction there, which means that light energy, particular light pattern, is transduced in the particular chemical signals. The structure of the chemical signals are isomorphic to light pattern. So you see isomorphic information with content. And then that electrical signals go into the brain. There are visual centers, a bunch of them. And then what happens? Basically, no one knows. Somehow we see that, oh, that pattern is a door. But you cannot have some other little man looking at that image in the brain and saying, oh, that must be a door. This pattern of isomorphic chemical signals is a door, because then you ask again same question. What about that little guy's eye and brain? What's going to happen there? If you explain that, there must be another little man inside the little man. So you see, a digress begins, and this is an infinite digress. How are you going to stop this? How are you going to block this? This is the homuncular paradox. Somehow those things go there. No one is looking from the top, like looking at a map of a comparing doors with catalog of doors. Who's comparing? Again, an eye and another brain? No. So there must be self-organization. So that's why I want to know. But this is a homuncular paradox. And I was like, I thought this was solved. Nobody. Yeah. Right now we don't have any real theory for it. Okay. But if we are like what? If we are clever, if evolution is clever like what doesn't have representations, computations, homuncularity? It's a bunch of centrifugal force, mechanical device, arms go up and down, and boom, you solve it. So people start to argue, maybe we are also like that. Very sophisticated, analog, mechanical devices without any representations, without any homuncular. We just enact behavior like that. Much like two balls under the laws of physics, Newtonian physics, for example. So, might we question later or?
Normally late,
Late.
but if you prefer. By the way, there is pen here if you need to write any time closure.
Maybe wait.
Okay.
So if you want to ask, yeah, go ahead.
This is the first counterexample.
This is the first counterexample in the sense that instead of writing a code, instead of being a digital computer, we can utilize analog physical things that are.
I asked this because I didn't understand it yet.
Okay. Okay. So there are some arguments here, but I will pass it because the real stuff I want to go to biology, not computer. I mean, I think computers are easy to dismiss. So and ChatGPT, I think it's total fake hype, but we don't have time for that. So don't believe the hype. So let me go to. Yeah. Let me go to the second counterexample. Oh, but I have to show you this. Passive walkers. Have you heard about passive walkers? So, some people argued against these kind of analog solutions because they say it's a stupid wheel, it's a stupid factory. Here you want to keep the rotation at an invariant. It's a simple task. What about walking? It's a complicated task. And then they ask, what about playing chess? How can you make a chess playing machine with just balls rotating and gears turning and no digital stuff? But at least for walking, there is this beautiful So this is, I mean, I hope you can see some. Anyways, you will see something that walks. This has zero electronics on it. Nothing. It's pure rods and screws and no cables, no batteries, nothing. And it walks much better, at least much more closer to the way the human, we have a certain like oscillation gauge, etc. And instead of like a mechanical robot, even bottom dynamics. But this is like mid-80s, zero electronics. Okay. Another example. So what are they doing basically is they are exploiting the natural resonance frequencies of pendulums, basically. Because if you have a pendulum, our legs are basically pendulums. If I lift this, if I don't apply any force, it will oscillate, right? It's like a clock. So just cleverly adjust, the moment it comes here, make the rest center of gravity shift, and then this pendulum has to kick in. So if you think on this a little bit, actually it is inspired by toys. Late 19th century, there were mechanical toys like that walk. You just push them, and they. So anyways, so these are called passive walkers because no electronics, and you can do fast stuff. Okay. Let's move to a little more complicated task, which is build an autonomous entity agent that can go into any room that it doesn't know and walk around, don't hit objects, don't hit humans, and even do some tasks like clean it, collect empty cola cans, and stuff like that. So this is a task. This is a research from MIT, again, early 80s. And Brooks is the guy who did the research. And they were, like, for 10 years, they struggled to make a simple robot in a simple room that don't annoy you, that don't get stuck, etc. The math get complicated and complicated. The code gets thousands of lines, and minimal progress. So they were again trying to do the standard computational view of the mind. This is the paradigm that I talked about at the beginning, right? So you have sensors, you have the input stage, you have a bunch of processes. At the end, there is a decision, plan, etc. And then you have output, input, process, output. So in this architecture, build a robot that basically just walks around peacefully. Turned out to be surprisingly hard. So Brooks decided to make this. He said, I'm going to rotate this diagram 90 degrees. Do this. And then boom, revolution happens. The beginning of behavioral robotics. And the cleaning robots that you have now, Roombas, he invented them. And then become rich also. Because of this trick. So, what is the trick? No, not trick. It's 10 years of frustration. And then, probably it's time to reveal. Yeah, of course not, but at the end, it ended up. Hold on. Yeah. So he decided to approach like this. He said, I'm going to make a very simple creature. The first layer is just going to avoid objects. That's very easy to do. Because you have sensors, again, like radars or cameras or whatever. If anything approaches to it, it just goes away. Now, this is elementary insect level intelligence, if you can call it intelligence. But I mean, actually, it is almost like what governor kind of analog, mindless machine. There are no representations, no map building, nothing. It just goes away. And on top of it, he's going to put another very simple layer, as simple as this one. For example, it's going to be every 20 seconds, it's going to look at the first layer. If there's nothing to avoid, it just sits still, right? It just waits. So this just says to it, okay, you have been waiting for 20 seconds, I'm going to assign a random direction. A direction is not like a direction that you understand. You know, this wheel is going to turn at this rate for this many, just random assignment. So we interpret it as wandering. Of course, the machine is not wandering. Right? So his idea was put layer on top of layer, each of them super elementary insect level, and no memory, no mapping, no like serious measurements, and the code is extremely simple. Like it's literally high school student. I solved some of the code, you know, just if do then this, if do that, and that's it. And so you know these details are not that important, but basically, you know, this is the first level, and then wonder level, and then explore level. He just puts integrated circuit on top of integrated circuit, and very simple interaction between the levels. Each higher level suppresses the lower level if necessary, and overrides it, and that's it. And these are done by these kind of simple conditions. And what it does is basically, it can start, this is the rule plan, right? It can start like this, turn right, avoid this object, and then go like this, etc. Yeah.
So to avoid object part, there is still no representation because it's just giving the reaction yes or no reaction. So there is so exist or not, 0 or 1,
yeah, exactly.
and then no representation at all.
Yeah.
So big or small or something.
No.
Okay.
No. Everything here is basically very elementary ones and zeros. The main idea is this. He's trying to avoid any kind of model of the room, any kind of map, any kind of learning, like a bird's eye view, like an omnipresent eye that looks, you know, the door is there, this is there, this is there. So if you look at this architecture, I mean, if you look at this, you can't see any like memory module, you can't see any, you know, hard drive, nothing. This is basically very kind of even less complicated than a vending machine. You know, put the money and get Coke. Those kinds of finite state automata layers, basically. So and then they made like 5 or 6 versions of this, each getting complicated and complicated, with much more levels, vertical levels, and they managed to do literally anti-soda can collecting robot like this at the laboratories of MIT. So you can come, if there's an empty, you know, it has a hand, it can grab it, go to the trash can, and do all those things without representations, without maps, without object recognition, pattern recognition, Wi-Fi, nothing. So, and then basically it became the first, and maybe the still last, right? Only commercially successful, commercially viable robot, actually. Like you can, so anyone can put it and plug it in, and it works 90% of the time.
The vacuums, you mean?
Yeah, the vacuums. Yeah. We don't have any other robots as far as I know. There are in industry there are some things, you know, in military there are some things. So this kind of autonomy, straightforward, streamlined, continuous operation. So basically, Brooks asks these questions. I mean, these are from his paper. So housefly, he is like, forget about humans. I am at the insect level. So what does a housefly do? How does housefly cognize stuff? So he is now here making fun of the orthodox view in mid-80s. Orthodox cognitive science, orthodox psychology, orthodox computer science, all of it. So he asks, does a housefly do these kinds of things? For example, recovering 3-dimensional surface descriptions. So it's going to look around with cameras, which are 2-dimensional projections, and then recover from 2-dimensional images a 3-dimensional map of the environment. Right? Of all the objects within its field of view. This was a famous problem in the 80s. David Marr, do you know David Marr? He became famous, again an MIT researcher. How to inverse, this is an inverse problem, how to calculate a 3-dimensional object from 2-dimensional. Still unsolved as far as I know, but I stopped following it. Or reasoning about threats from a human posed with a fly sweater, in particular about the human's goal structures, intents, or beliefs. So now he's attacking desired risk psychology. So a fly, because they can survive with us, has to read my goals, my intents, my beliefs, my desires. So the insect must have a theory of mind, in the technical sense, and that infer my mind, predict my mind, run away accordingly, or follow me accordingly, because I might be a food source. So this is an extremely complicated thing, design belief psychology. Next, representing prototypes and instances of humans. Again, what are concepts? 80s, there was a famous paradigm called the prototype theory. So when I look at a door, I can recognize that door because there's a prototype door in my head, which I can combine. There's an ideal door image in my... Ellen Roche, do you know her? She's a famous psychologist. She came up with this prototype theory of what concepts are, any concepts, you know, not just doors, but so he's attacking that. How can a housefly has all these ideal prototypes? Making analogies concerning suitability for egg laying between dead pigs and other dead four-legged animals. So if you need a carcass to reproduce, you have to put your eggs somewhere with some kind of food source, and I guess houseflies or some flies, dead pigs might be the ideal, but what happens if there are no dead pigs around? So it has to make an analogy for other four-legged dead animals that are good enough. An analogy is still a very hard topic. Like, we don't know how we make analogies, basically. There are circular accounts, but not honest about like naturalized account of how analogies work. So last one, constructing naive physics, attacking developmental psychology now, because a child has a naive physics, because a small child can play with balls, climb trees. Somehow, child must have a naive Newtonian physics understanding of the world. Again, orthodox view. So housefly must know how to land on the ceiling. So it's upside down, right? So according to the standard views, we expect from a housefly or any insect all these amazing advanced capabilities in order to accomplish a simple task of survival. Forget about writing poetry, playing chess, whatever. Or, he says, there is very close connection of sensors to actuators. Let's look at the real insect. For example, real houseflies really have direct connections from their eye, you know, thousands of eyes. It bypasses brain, goes to the wing directly. It doesn't have to go, the input doesn't have to go to your brain and then process there, evaluated. Judgments has to be issued, and then those has to map to the wing, fly, you know, at this frequency, at this power, at this angle, etc., etc. Real flies really have direct connections from eye to the wing. There are pre-wired patterns of behavior. You know, just take genetics, basically. That's much like the Roombas. Remember the first layer? It's just avoiding. It was pre-wired to avoid. That's it. That's evolutionarily feasible, because that's like, you know, 5 cables down. The fly uses simple navigation techniques. Okay, and it is almost characterizable as a deterministic machine. So he's talking about basically finite state automata with each layer. So, I mean, even if you don't agree with these, I think intuitively must begin to make sense that something is wrong at this level. This is too much. What about a worm? Right? Not something that can fly, but a snail, for example. Go to lower species and lower species and lower species. They do amazing things. They have very simple nervous systems. How are these? You know, something is wrong with our theories. I think it's clear, but how to replace that? I don't know. Okay, so that was the second counterexample. Now we finally come to the biology stuff. Have you seen these molecular machine videos? Let me show you. Apparently, this is how inside a cell, this is one single cell. This is one single cell, and things are like this. There's a highway, there are walkers inside one single cell. Some of them are carrying, vitamins to the other parts of the cell. Let me see. Anyways, you get the picture. This is not science fiction, by the way. This is a real theory, very famous theory, and kind of the popular theory now, basically. There's proton pumps, there's walking legs like this. These are just macromolecules that manage all these things with basic sugars. Energy is the sugar, ATP, etc. ATP comes, the molecule makes this, another ATP comes, molecule makes this. There are rotational proton pumps, for example, which literally rotates and pumps protons, and all sorts of machines, basically.
What is the theory called? This popular theory?
Molecular machines.
Okay.
Machine conception of the cell, maybe. I mean, yeah. But this is a real, very popular theory now. I mean, it's not clear, but there are two legs here and that they walk.
It is used a lot in social media to make some fun, so I guess students are familiar with this.
Probably, yeah, okay. Yeah. When I first saw these videos like 5-6 years ago, I was like mesmerized. I was like, this is beautiful. Finally,
Actually, I watched the exact video when I read your description of the seminar. I found the video and I was like, what?
Yes.
It was inspiring.
Yes, beautiful. Plus, beautiful is always, it's beautiful also because we immediately understand it. We grew up with these machines. I mean, this chair is something like this. Right? So it's very intuitive. We immediately feel at home. We are like, okay, well, that's it. Well, everything is wrong in that picture. Everything is wrong. Is the next, how many minutes do I have? I mean, not even Watts governor, not even Brooks robots. There is not even any kind of machine in any kind of definition that we can think of. Zero. So hopefully I will convince you in a sense. How many minutes do I have?
So let's see. It has been 30 minutes so far. So maybe 10 more.
10 more. Okay. I'm skipping the philosophical parts.
No. Then maybe. I mean, we have time. We have time for questions. Maybe 15.
Let me go to like the main gist, and then you can go to nice things. I mean, I was going to talk about a little bit Descartes, Kant, Hegel, because this machine idea became popular in 300 years, step by step. I mean, it is a history. It's not some, God being like gravity, or it is not neutral at all. It is an ideology behind it, etc., etc. But okay, so I'm skipping those. So why did I say all that? Everything is wrong in that picture. So let's define what a machine is in 4 properties, and then I will show you all 4 properties are wrong, basically. What are the 4 properties? Any machine, anything that satisfies these 4 properties, we will call the machine. 1. Mechanical construction. So any machine can be constructed by anyone following a blueprint. What does blueprint mean? You give me a user menu, like IKEA, right? Like IKEA furniture. You give me enough parts, I look at the blueprint, and I can just build the machine. And anyone can do it. So that's our one understanding of machines intuitively. It can be sophisticated, but each step has to be very simple. A mindless thing can do it. A machine can do the machine. It must be such a mindless process that a mindless idiot machine can build any other machine. Basically. So Turing, if you know Turing, then you can read some Turing here. So, okay, good. Reversibility. Any machine can be interrupted or stopped to analyze it or fix it, and then can be started again. So if your car is broken, right, you stop it, you take the carburetor out, put a new one, etc., and then it works again. So our understanding of machines are, there are subparts, you can just stop the machine, change everything, maintain everything, put it back together, it will go as usual. And you can sense that, I mean, if for living beings, like if you are dead, it's over. You can't go back, you can't reverse, right? Determinism, I mean, determinism, which is animation accomplishes a specific task in a predictable and controlled manner, so they must be predictable. If I press enter, if I turn the wheel on a car, if I sit on a chair, I know exactly how it's going to behave. Right? And then cyclic efficiency, this is basically, you know, each machine does one particular thing in a cyclic manner, just repeats it, right? Like a car engine or washing machine or computer. Very specific, repetition after repetition after repetition, and that kind of gives it both determinism and control and efficiency. I mean, imagine a machine that does the same task differently at each time you do it. Each time you start your engine, it starts differently. It starts with a different route. It starts, you know, maybe Windows is like that a little bit, but so we want these four properties in a machine, and now we will try to see if those molecular machines really obey any of these properties. Okay. So the molecular machine people say yes, it is like that, and they have this tool, X-ray crystallography. It's basically a camera. It basically takes a picture. So I think it's the unreasonable degradation caused by a lens and the image it creates, because this photography analog, remember the homunculus paradox? It was also, you know, the eye takes a picture and the brain looks at the picture. How do we look at a cell? We use X-rays, but first you crystallize them. That's why there's this crystallography here. A single cell, everything here is moving, vibrating, and molecules are coming and going. So they first crystallize it, they freeze it basically, and then send X-rays to it to take a picture. And then you can exactly see each molecule sequence, where each atom is related to atoms, etc., etc. And then you look at this, and now you look at this hood in a car engine, same picture. There is this part which is nucleus, right? Here. There is this rectangle here. Well, there's this kind of ellipse here. And okay, it's the engine, I look at the hood. I mean, so everything reinforces this intuition that there is really just a factory, a chemical factory. But I mean, even in a car, you can understand just by taking pictures how much you can understand, even for a car engine. Right? But the situation is even way worse.
Kill the cell to crystallize.
Yeah. So what happened in early 2000s is basically new technology popped up. So in the lab, they can now take single molecules. For example, a single in those walking machines, kinesins, you can basically take them and you can follow that single molecule what it does. So this is a whole new way of looking at a cell. You don't freeze anything, you don't take pictures, you watch a movie. And then they were like, oh, everything might be wrong, because it's not behaving at all like a machine part. And you will try to see that. So here they are too long, didn't read, so I'm just gonna give you the gist of it, and the rest will be details of this. Basically, what they discovered empirically even is this. The machine parts, suppose the machine parts in a cell are not solid. Every machine part we know is solid, right? Gears, chair, wheel. But these things are not solid, but bad solids, like a gel or jam, or dense liquids at best. Okay, so basically they are like cooked spaghetti. The parts that you have, if you don't freeze them, if you don't take a snapshot, if you look at them alive dynamically, you see vibrating, cooked spaghetti, you know, flexible, and you have to construct a machine using that. So think about if you have a bicycle, and the thing is cooked spaghetti. If you do this, is it going to turn? How are you going to unlock this? Where is your key? Key is a solid thing. You know, for each machine, keys are very important. So, am I going to throw spaghetti to the door? So even this is not enough though, okay? Let's assume somehow we figured out engineeringly how to make machines using cooked spaghetti. Where does this cooked spaghetti live? Where does it operate? It doesn't operate in our environment. These are microscales, right? It is basically trillions of molecules hitting each other. Right? Temperature changes 5 degrees, everything starts to shake even more violently. So it's like cooked spaghetti in a hailstorm. Like a dolu fırtınası. So you have these cooked spaghetti machines and there's bombardment to it. And very forceful, in that scale very forceful. So it's not like a carved metal against air molecules, you know? So somehow we have to solve that problem if it's a machine. Even worse, this is the final nail in the coffin, is it's not even cooked spaghetti. Cooked spaghetti is still our physical medium-scale intuitions. It is actually like candle flames. Think of a candle flame. Right? A candle flame is always changing, moving. Whatever difference you can think of a candle flame versus a cooked spaghetti, exactly all of them hold. So these machines, so we have to make machines with candle flame kind of always changing processes in a hailstorm. That's why it's not even a simple bicycle kind of machine, let alone computer. Okay, so this is the main idea that's emerging now. Of course, we have to put the details in, but is that clear? I think as with any wonderful paradigm or theory, the basic idea should be very simple and brilliant and even understandable by a 10-year-old. So if you get one thing from this talk, it is this: cooked spaghetti is in a hailstorm. Okay? But if you want to be more advanced, candle flames in a hailstorm. Okay? So build machines like that. You can change the definition of what a machine is. You can say, okay, that's also a machine, but then it's a definition chasing. And yeah, well, okay, then whatever. Everything is a machine. Then the concept becomes too broad, hence meaningless for me, etc., etc. So it is not small, sophisticated, interesting machines. We have to completely change our imagination. I have like 2 minutes left. Here's my favorite example. I was going to give 4 sub-examples, but because of time, I will give. And this is exactly attacking the walking molecular motor. So if it's not a machine, if it's not really, ATP comes, there's a conformal change in the macromolecule, so it changes shape, that means the leg goes up. It produces a power stroke basically, just like a spring or just like a piston in an engine. Explosion comes, a power stroke pushes it, and this pushing via the rest of the machine becomes rotation, for example, or however you want to change its form. But since we have to completely forget about machines, we must have no power stroke here. Any power stroke, let's assume, then it's a machine. It's not even a spring. But we are accepting the fact that there is unidirectional, uniform motion, that literally certain molecules start here and walk like this, and they are carried. How? So this was the hailstorm that it's called Brownian motion in physics. So this is what the infrared fan looks like. And your engine is like this, and then, and you want this, not some random movement, but you want start from A, go to B. Okay? Without using any machines. How? This is the problem. So there are some problems. What they discovered is this. This is called Brownian ratchet. Ratchet is that guy that I just passed. It's mandallı çark. Basically, you have this. So it can only rotate in one direction, right? A ratchet. So if it rotates like this mandal comes out, and then it goes in. So it can't go back. So whatever random movements you do to this guy, it can only move like this counterclockwise, because the mandal will block. So but again, this is a machine. We can't use this analogy. But something similar in a very different sense happens. That's why they still calling it a Brownian ratchet in these biology papers too. What they are proposing is, have you watched Doctor Strange, the Marvel movie? So in the movie, Doctor Strange has powers to change the structure space-time around him. Like, for example, I can do this, and then this floor can tilt like this. Or, I can make this building go up and down, etc., etc. Essentially, what they're saying is, those macromolecules are not legs walking like that. They are like Doctor Strange. They change the whole space-time structure around themselves, not in a Einsteinian or quantum mechanical way, in a Newtonian way, let's say. Nothing fancy like special relativity or general relativity. So what they're saying is, this is the thing that we want to move from A to B, but it is in that hailstorm, so it is moving a little bit here because of the bombardment. It moves a little bit here, it moves a little bit here, but on average, it doesn't move at all. On average, it's oscillating here like this, because bombardment from all directions. Okay? But when an ATP molecule binds to it, it changes the surrounding energy, the potential energy around itself like this. Literally, think of this literally like this surface beneath it. Now, there's no surface, it's liquid, but anyways. If it becomes jagged like this, okay, so then what happens? For example, if it's here, if it becomes like this, there is, in a gravitational sense, if there was gravitation, let's think of this as a marble on a gravitational. So a small push will move it here, right? A small push from this side will make it go like this. But because of this particular shape, there is symmetry breaking in the sense that, on average, it will prefer going right. Right? Because this has higher length compared to this. So ATP comes, this shape becomes like this, so it falls down to this, say 60% of the time, and then ATP is consumed, the energy landscape becomes flat again. So now, again, there is pure symmetry from left and right. It doesn't move at all because the bombardment is random and symmetric. So it again oscillates here. Another ATP joins. Again, it shifts the whole landscape. Again, it's kind of more likely to tilt to the right. So it comes here. Another ATP comes, and you get the picture. So in a sense, they are saying kind of Einsteinian trick. No engine, no nothing, no power spring, etc. The whole geometry is changing because of the ATP molecules. This is the most you can take now. And so what happens? Unlike a motor, I like this sentence. It moves because of the random noise around it. Because of the not despite the noise. So we want noise, we want friction, we want inefficiency. These are totally opposite desires for an ordinary engineer, because friction is bad for engineers, right? It produces heat, it is a waste of fuel, electricity, etc., etc. You want a clear environment. You don't want noise, because noise again entangles in what you want, your specific purpose. You don't want randomness. But here, you breathe on randomness. You strive on randomness. There are two random events here, two totally disordered events. One, binding of ATPs. We never said there must be a mechanism that binds ATP every second or whatever. ATP is just floating around, just like everything else in the cell. Sometimes one ATP happens to collide with your macromolecule, the kinesin, the walking guy. Okay, whenever it wants to. So that's random, and another one is with full Brownian motion. You are under these random collisions all the time, and you want to harness them. So you combine those two disordered chaotic elements, and then you have order. So two disorders give you an order. This is again against all engineering dogma. We don't have machines like that. It's a total different. And it's also I hate Greek philosophy, but I know this much. Greeks have this axiom in them, in the Greek culture. Like comes from like. The people that know Parmenides or Aristotle probably know better than me, but not, something cannot come from nothing. There are these axioms in Greek thinking. That's why they were against change, I believe, because for change you have to first disappear and not from. So if something is coming, it has to come from something that's close to it. But we are now saying order comes from disorder. And even Schrödinger was wrong, because Schrödinger, even though he knows disorder and thermodynamics and all that, he has a famous book, What is Life? So he tries to understand life as a physicist. And he says, for life, order must come from order, unlike certain physical systems. So he's trying to make a distinction like that. And Schrödinger, his quantum mechanics is very important. So, yeah, there are 3 more examples like this in terms of every intuition that we have is wrong when it comes to machines and their parts and how they operate. The other 3 is, I think, not that brilliant. I mean, this is like Dr. Strange level brilliant, I think. But one of them is, I can tell you shortly, is that they discovered that these proteins, they don't have a specific task. Proteins fold into a specific shape. That structure gives them a specific function. Right? There is a structure and function correlation in standard biology. There is the central dogma of biology, which is you have DNA, and then DNA produces mRNA, and then that produces proteins, and that there is no reverse interaction. So Monod, do you know Monod? The famous Nobel Prize winner, 60s biology. He also has an interest in philosophy, and he has a philosophical book, I think it's called Chance and Necessity. He was very influential, basically. He said, because of the central dogma of biology, it's one-way interaction between DNA determines everything, code, information, DNA, to everything else. He says, a cell is not Hegelian. There is no dialectics here. It is purely Descartes, it's a Descartesian machine. So he was also one of the instrumental guys to popularize this machine understanding. So when I said there's an ideology behind it, it's all these historical figures and their influences. So, but now they have a protein, something monohexate, I forgot its name. They discovered it does 150 jobs. Not 2 jobs. Not daytime job and then nighttime. 150. And then again it gets worse. 150 jobs means this guy has 150 shapes that it can fold into, and they are semi-stable, so that with that shape, it can stay for a couple of seconds, couple of days, so that it can do that particular test, and then change its shape, do another test. Again, think of your car as like, right? I mean, it's not a machine, okay? But it's even worse than that, because they are now discovering intrinsically disordered proteins. These proteins have 0 final conformational folding, not 150 or 78 or 5. They never stabilize. They never stabilize. Yet, it turns out they're important for biological function, basically. And so, I mean, how are you going to investigate such a thing? So you need these new methods. Right? You have to tag them with single molecules and watch exactly how they move, behave, etc. So all that dynamicity is revealing such creative solutions from evolution. Okay. This was also very important, but I will stop. Basically, again, this picture is wrong. This is in fact the cell. This is when the cell divides. These are called spindles. Spindles. So, these ropes pull the genes apart, and one cell has the genes and the other cell has a copy. So now you have division.
Mitosis you are talking about.
Yeah, mitosis spindle. Again, totally wrong. Because they are not, as I said, they are not cooked spaghettis. It's not even a rope. This is what we are depicting as a rope here is a candle flame. Continuously changing, steady state, method transport. Things are coming and things are going. And someone stabilizes there. But we don't have time for all these things. So I'll stop.
Thank you. We have also time for questions. I don't know if I should moderate or maybe
Let's
we can
see
take
if we should try on chaos and disorder. So
okay, let's try. Yeah.
it's not
Okay, thank you first of all for your presentation. It's a very controversial topic. I have a lot of questions, but I will just pick one of them. And when we look at the other dimensions of the discussion, by the way, I agree with your idea, general idea that we cannot reduce simply living organisms into machines. But the other part of the question is that when we look at the future of evolution, who has more chance to survive, machines or living organisms? Because when you look at the literature, generally why we are investing a lot of money and energy into machines? Because they intuitively feel that machines has more chance to continue their life in the far future, in the space, and you cannot send your copy to Mars or other galaxies, but probably learning machines has more chance to reach and live in other spaces. So what is your opinion in this time? By the way, we have a very limited, as you know, very limited fine-tuning place in this space-time.
I think the answer to that is more not intrinsic metaphysical
That is true.
problems. I think it's pragmatic problems, economics, history, influence, funding, and I mean, first of all, it's objectively hard to come up with new machines using cooks, spaghettis, or candle frames. But I think that's the objective part of it. But it's also, we know how to build machines now, and they are getting better and better. Old school machines, But now this is artificial intelligence. Now, Boston Analytics is coming, So they have inertia. They can find funding. They can influence people. So it's more that those are sociological and economic things like it. I don't think they believe that machines have more chance of surviving than us. I think that's the only game they know, and a lot of money is already coming, so why change, why fix it? I mean, if you can make an F-35 fighter jet now, and nobody's asking you if you spend $30 billion or $60 billion, it's basically infinite money, why you should go, even if you believe in this? You know what I mean? Like, for example, ChatGPT, we don't have time. It's just a money machine, as far as I think. I mean, I think I got the Fulbright money because they thought I was going to make something, contribute to ChatGPT. Why should they give Fulbright money to a philosopher? To me, Because my application was like, artificial intelligence, this, artificial intelligence, that. You're going to change this is wrong, this is the new feature, blah, blah. And then okay, you know what I mean? So my personal belief is they are totally wrong. But if you live in a peaceful, ideal world where funding is distributed justly, And by the way, nothing is wrong with. I like computers. I like cars. I like planes. I like ChatGPT. I don't like the claim that cells are a sophisticated version of a 35. Intelligence is a sophisticated version of ChatGPT. That I don't like because I don't think it's true. But just like manufacturing, like the cotton factories, what is it? Industrial Revolution, like 1840s. That changed the whole world. I think ChatGPT is going to change the whole world. But it is not intelligence. It is not going to replace us. It is not, etc. So that part I am totally against. I think it's a useful technology. Is that?
Yeah.
So we've been talking about machines in the sense that we analyzed how their outcomes were mechanical things so far. So for example, things that we see causes us to like open the door or do something, like do an action that can be explained in real life actions. But what about thinking or like being aware in general? I can even understand like some part of thinking, like if my thinking like makes me decide on something and do something, okay, like I can see how that connects from one machine to like one mechanical input to and mechanical output. But just being aware of something, like the last moments before you die, for example, like how can we like analogize this aspect of living beings?
I have no idea. I mean, consciousness, self-consciousness, stuff like that, I think they are so out of our reach now. We don't know what they're talking about. So I stopped reading that totally. I stopped reading continental philosophy, phenomenology and all these are wild, bombastic things. The analogy that I like is like, say you want to make a bird, a flying bird, right? So what you do, you look at a real bird and imitate it, right? Real birds, we know everything about the way the wing of a real bird works. It's kind of fluid mechanics and Newtonian mechanics. In theory, in principles, we know everything about how a bird, this thing works. We are still having a hard time building it. When it comes to consciousness and subconscious and brain, even basically in nervous system, we don't even know what are we going to imitate. How about are we going to copy? With the wing, yes, we can copy exactly, we know everything theoretically. With a nervous system, you don't know what to copy. For example, I think the integrated and fire theory of neurons, integrated and fire theory, neurons are these things. A bunch of signals come to a single neuron, you sum them up, if it passes the threshold, then this neuron fires to the next neuron, right? It integrates and fires. All neural networks right now works on this principle. I think it is either wrong or highly misleading. So even at that fundamental level, I don't think this is just synapses and two neurons. There are astrocytes. There are a bunch of other cells in the brain. There are hormones, there are gap junctions, there are a bunch of modulations, there are self-modulations, flow modulations, etc. So at least it must be oscillator, for example. No like stepwise integrated and fire kind of non-narrative, but at least it must be Fourier transforming like bunch of oscillating radio broadcasts, bunch of antennas broadcasting stuff. So there is some research now in France. Someone is doing spin networks. So they will use oscillators. Each thing is an oscillator, not something that waits to be summed and fired. Each thing already oscillates by itself. You don't have to put any input to it. It's active already. Living things are active already. You don't need to trigger them. None of the machines we make, including neural networks, they are passive things waiting to be triggered. So even that's wrong. So from that, I can make the connection with the biological brain understood in that sense of neural networks to self-consciousness, our memories, our experiences, you know what I mean? So I literally don't know. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this interesting talk. To tell you the truth, it was very difficult for me to grasp this topic. So Parmenides or Plato would go crazy in this randomness. They will have panic attack, I guess. So I am curious, like, how is it possible to have interactiveness in such a random world?
Yeah, so you are right. The question, I think the question is worse because if you have substances, they are already stable, they're already there. So you don't ask, why is the substance staying as it is? That's the axiom, that's given. If you go to process metaphysics, like in this one, then stability becomes a question. You have to give an account of why a thing is stable, why this bottle is still a bottle like this. So we basically look for invariance under change, if that's that's your question. What's a good example? I switched the paradigm. Everything I see it like that. So even this is like that. It's not a good example. What's a good example? I mean, a river constitutes a vortex, or at the end of a, şehir hatları vapur, you see a bunch of vortex, right? What is a vortex? Vortex is not a substance in the sense that there is no vortex object there, right? A vortex, a spiral thing like this, is a certain organization of water molecules that somehow keep repeating that pattern so that it is long enough that our eyes can see it and perceive it and give a reaction to it. So it's a stable process long enough that it has this organization. You don't care about, it can be water molecules, it can be oil molecules. You only look at the form. Those millions and millions of little tiny things somehow organized in that immediate pattern. So that's stability. Candle flame is a supreme example of a stability. Constantly things are going on, etc., etc. But somehow we have a small locus where, yes, everything is changing. No molecule, it doesn't have any single molecule that stays within it, but the form stays. So we have to totally switch to process metaphysics. We have to look at within that the possibilities of levels of emergence. You have to take emergence seriously. So Mark told me, because I was having a hard time in terms of believing emergence seriously, especially I can compare it to physics. So for us, it's quartz, done. Nothing emerges. All emerges is fake, illusion. There is nothing solid. If you are coming from particle physics, for example. So I was all reductions school. So Mark told me, so this is how radical you should be if you are accepting interactivism. So he puts three things like this on the table. Do we have a triangle now? Did the triangle emerge with these three things? Yes, it emerged. So emergence is everywhere. The question is not whether something emerges or not. That's not hard question. Hard question is whether it's stable or not. Whether it makes causal difference in the world. This triangle doesn't make any causal difference, much causal difference. I mean, now it's gone. So unstable, so weak. But certain triangles, like Masons, or a triangle in a classical orchestra, was to be more peaceful. That triangle is very important. I am the drummer. I take it running seriously. So that triangle is very important. Makes the whole piece. So in that sense, the task is we have to come up with a whole new physics that begins with complex theories, that begins with thermodynamics. So thermodynamics has to be not a boundary condition, but a fundamental physics. Non-linearity should be fundamental. Right now, all the fundamental equations, except general relativity, but you can solve the problem, but all quantum mechanical equations, fundamental physics equations, including Schrödinger's equation, are linear equations. What that means doesn't matter. But linearity doesn't allow emergence. Linearity means if you push it 2 times, it will go 2 times faster. Linearity doesn't have self-organization. Things don't come up and So we must have somehow non-linear fundamental physics equations. So Prigogine, and we heard about Prigogine tried to do that. He got a Nobel Prize in chemical physics, but he wasn't able to finish the project, obviously. But again, like this question, there is pushback. They don't give you money if you're going to say, okay, I'm going to do this kind of physics, a whole new physics. So Prigogine was so brilliant, he was a Nobel Prize winner, they weren't able to shut him up. Because he's like, here's my Nobel Prize, you should. But I mean, it's all super speculative in that sense. But on the other hand, if you look at quantum field theory, for example, at least physicists are way ahead of psychologists and computer scientists and philosophers, especially analytical philosophers. Because quantum field theory is actually, a field is a process. Field is not a substance. An electron is not a substance anymore, according to quantum field theory. It's a quantization of a field. There is no electron particle. It's one form of the field, one organization of the field. We perceive it as a dense particle like electron. The classic example for that is if you have a guitar string vibrates, right? How many of these shapes can you fit to the length of the guitar string? It must be an integer. So it's a totally continuous medium. I do this. There can be, for example, 5 waves on that string because this is fixed. The guitar is a finite length. If I hit it harder, it will be not 5, but let's say 17, but still integer. But there is no like 17 waves, 17 wave particles, or 17 the node C particles there. It's just one organization of a wave, of a field. So electron, proton, all the particles are in a sense like that. So in that sense, even though quantum field theory is still a half theory, at least that part of physics is more okay with, let's just think of field processes. And the organization of fields is what reality is. So there's a possibility there. And yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, would it be wrong if I say that living things are better machines?
After these examples, I want to totally forget the word machine.
Okay, so there is an ontological difference between machines and living things.
I think so, because, yeah, go ahead. Sir.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Is it ontological difference between machines and living things?
I will say hell yeah.
So, so are you saying that that is the soul?
That is this.
Soul. The soul exists.
Oh, soul. Well, I mean, if you take emergence seriously, I can't say no to that either. Because soul might be a particular level of emergence at a particular level. You know.
So what is the ontological difference between machines and living things then?
Okay. You see, that doesn't have a short answer. But the short answer is,
Yeah.
all living things, without exception, are far from equilibrium thermodynamical steady-state systems. So they have to be far from equilibrium. If they go to equilibrium, they die. They stop.
Yeah.
Okay. All these machines that we have are equilibrium, near equilibrium, or right at the equilibrium kind of physical system. Any crystal, for example.
What is equilibrium?
Equilibrium is, again, so let's say you have your mountain is like this,
Yeah.
and you have a small ball. I have a small ball here. I push it. What will the ball do? It will fall down, oscillate a little bit
Yeah.
because of friction, etc., etc. It will stabilize here, right? It will stop here. This is equilibrium in the classical physics sense, which is not far from equilibrium. So all matter, it was taught, want to end up these kinds of equilibriums, basically. It is stable because even if you push it a little bit, it will and then stop here again. To make a substantial change, you have to give it energy more than this or more than this.
So living things
Are not like that at all.
are something more than that material.
It's totally different. You are not even close to this. Limit system, you keep pushing it. What is again, can you frame an example? But, I mean,
Hurricane.
yeah, but I mean, so basically you have to feed the system from outside, energy and matter.
But
Even energy is not, say you have a bag.
yeah, we eat and drink.
Exactly. Sun is pushing us. Sun is the ultimate source here. The whole world is a far from equilibrium system because it's being constantly pushed by sun's energy. You see, in this example, I push the ball and I stop giving any energy to it. Then it's on. But consider I put a small rocket underneath it. A small rocket pushes it most of the time. That's exactly what Earth is like. It is getting tremendous energy from the sun all the time. And then it's rotating, there's magma inside it, it gives out heat, and all these things push everything on Earth to self-organize in complexity layer after complexity layer after complexity layer after complexity layer, billions of years. Right? So, I mean, even you have a grocery bag, you fill it up, you want to have some more space in it, what do? You shake it. You see, I am pushing the system far from equilibrium to obtain order. You see, if you push systems like this, second law of thermodynamics stops. Then you can have order from disorder. Entropy can decrease because it is getting energy and matter from the outside. That energy it can use the human world, but even water molecules do that. Use it to reorganize itself, for example, convection cells, hexagonal pattern. So it uses the heat behind, underneath it, to reduce its entropy so that perfect hexagonal shapes emerge. Right? No single molecule has information or map of platonic hexagonal shapes that, oh, I have to go to the hexagonal shapes. Okay? Why? Because it is not an equilibrium system, it's a far from equilibrium system. Hence, classical thermodynamics collapses. You have to go to this new kind of energy regime, which is far from equilibrium thermodynamics. And it is still highly active, very hot. Very small progress is happening in that area. Like in 1930s, Onsager, there is a physicist called Onsager, he made some contributions. Then pedagogy made some contributions. Then in the 90s, one guy made, so it's very slow. But we have to focus on that part. And forget about this energy well kind of intuition or naive physics. Nothing is like this. At least no single cell is like this at all. The whole Earth is not like this. So this is such an idealized thought experiment that every physicist has to go through. You know? But this is, the math is easy. I mean, it's really such pragmatic. If you put a small rocket behind the sky, it's immediately hard as mathematics. You know? I mean, I don't know how to, from the get-go, write that equation down. But without a rocket, so it's a closed system, I can write down the equations. 2 years of physics training can give that. So there are multiple problems like that, but it looks like we have no chance, but we have to start thinking. So if you forget this, if you have layers of emergence, okay, then what's split? I mean, you know what I mean? I can't say no. I have to be.
So living things do not follow the rules of nature.
No, everything follows the rules of nature, but they don't follow the classical thermodynamical rules. For example,
But maybe then living things are created by that better scientists.
what do you mean? A better theory.
Better scientists, you know. The maker of living things are better artisans than us because we create simple machines and.
I mean, maybe 50 years later, but I don't know. I'm optimistic in that sense. I mean, because if you look at the things, if you manage to change paradigms, that progress comes. The hard thing is to change the paradigm. You know, once you change the paradigm, it's much easier to. So, I mean, in that sense, quantum mechanics is not that hard compared to Newtonian mechanics. It's just you have to change your intuitive upbringing. That takes. I mean, Einstein takes special relativity. A high school kid can understand special relativity. It's Pythagorean theorem, you know, some square roots, some 1/over ratios. That's it. But asking those questions that Einstein asked and giving answers without falling back to your old intuitions, that's extremely hard. That's, you know, so if you manage to do that with thermodynamics, well, maybe.
Sorry, discussion is finished?
Yeah.
Sorry, Sinem Hocam, you are the first.
No, that's okay. That's
Okay.
okay, Hocam.
Well, maybe my question will be very stupid question actually. Well, all these scientific philosophical efforts actually is to understand the structure of reality, or the structure of things. But when we go further and further and further, for instance, quantum physics and the others, these theories cannot actually help us to understand the reality actually. Maybe some specific part of reality, but not, for instance, if we focus on these details of the reality, this theory, so we cannot actually explain, the crucial parts concerning our life. Because our life,
Crucial things are good and bad.
well, some ethical things, some political things, etc., etc. Why? Because actually our life requires some regularities, some similarities, some, etc. But here, when we go to the, details, we'll see, for instance, the two disorder give us order, or etc., etc. So how can we, based on these theories, how can we, create some theories that help us really to, to create different theories that help us to understand the reality, daily life, etc. Because, okay, I'm not really familiar to this terminology discussion.
But I think your question is more general, no?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
science in general, not
Newtonian physics maybe doesn't work in some sense,
Mm-hmm.
but at that time it worked to for people to understand, the reality, to create something that helped them to live
Yeah.
better, etc., etc. But now we are doing many research about the reality, like quantum physics and other theories, etc. But when we, took their result, the result of this theory, how can we, create some explanatory theories that help us to live better? Maybe this is also an ethical question.
Okay. Well, my first reaction would be, it doesn't have to be, some parts of human struggle might be restricted to these kinds of things. I mean, not everybody has to be an ethicist, maybe that's what I'm trying to say. If that's what you are saying, that Newtonian physics might be just Newtonian physics and has nothing to say about good or bad, or our daily life, or how we find peace with ourselves, etc., etc. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing or a futile search. That's one level of answer, if you accept it.
No, actually, my question is not this.
Okay.
They don't tell us which one is good, which one is bad. Of course, this is another topic. But this kind of terminology, goodness, badness, etc., refers to some stable background. Some regularities, some structure, etc. But here there is no actually structure. Something.
So you mean in this particular stuff that I talked about, or in science in general? I'm always missing your,
Especially
your
this
level.
part, not in science in general. Yes.
Especially in this part.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I mean, as I said, we did reach order, right?
Mm-hmm.
We did reach order by harnessing two disordered phenomena. We used two stochastic processes, and we reached an entity that carries something from A to B. this is stable, this is regular. Without that carrying, we will die immediately. Right? This is one of the most fundamental. This is not some radical process in some radical cell. These are like fundamental method transport in any cell to function properly. So, at the end of all that crazy new machine paradigm, we explain the same experimental data. Both camps are trying to explain the same. They agree on that. They say, okay, there is uniform transport of matter. There is uniform rotation. There is this, there is that. What is the exact mechanism underneath it? So everybody agrees with the regularities and stabilities and all that. But one part says the thing that produces that regularity and stability are small regularities and stabilities. Because the parts of a machine are also small machines. Right? The other part is saying, no. Even forget about theoretical niceties. Look at this new single molecule tagging methods. Now we can look at under a microscope. We can watch a movie now. We don't need to look at pictures. Even that empirical picture tells us that there might be total different ways of obtaining the same regularity and stability, and let's say machine-like behavior or logical behavior even. Right? So, if you are saying that where is the regularity, where is the stability here, it is trying to explain it actually. Trying to explain it in a different, paradigmatically different approach. If you are saying why there is stochastic behavior at that lower level, if you want to get rid of stochasticity or probability totally, from 0 to all the way up, well, then you have to attack quantum mechanics. Because underneath this, there is no quantum effects here. We don't need quantum effects, I think. But if you look at the macromolecule even deeper, it's pure quantum probability distributions traveling around, etc., etc. And so if you want to, then you have to argue: is quantum mechanics true or not? You know, as Einstein said, will God throw a dice? He didn't believe. But that's the whole.
There is no need to talk about which one is true, which one is false, because true and false, this is another topic. This is, we don't know actually. How can we say it's true or it's false?
That's why I like science, because it is the only thing that from the get-go accepts that it is wrong. All scientific theories are wrong. By definition, negative induction, is scientific proof. No, I mean, Einstein is wrong, quantum mechanics is wrong, so if quantum mechanics is wrong...
To say that it's wrong, it is false, we need some, rules that accept,
Exactly. So what is the criteria for accepting it, for talking about it, for building machines around it? And I think in that sense, science is the best method. I don't see science as a result, a bunch of list of results. Science is a way of approaching things. And in that sense, I think it is not perfect at all. But every other approach, I think it just either became something totally random. Anyone with a capability of writing a consistent theory, story, can do it, So either it slides to that, or it slides to nonsense, so somehow science manages to, even though it is wrong, and it accepts it's wrong. So it's very ethical, I think. Because I'm not talking about ordinary physicists. Ordinary physicists don't care about this thing. Ordinary physicists will say, of course, quantum mechanics is right. What are you talking about? Because most of the ordinary physicists, I was in them, that's what I know. They don't study philosophy of science and how sophisticated it can get. Not just Kuhn and evolutions, there's Lakatos, there's Landau, there's Feyerabend, there's Nancy Cartwright, there are like full relativist philosophers of science now. They say every theory is right. She says pluralist views of physics, for example. She says there are items of truths, and all of them are true. So quantum mechanics is true here, Newtonian mechanics is true here, and people are debating these,
So Hegel is right.
What? Hegel. Hegel is right, but we have to accept paradox, right?
Yes.
Only. So it's a circle after circle.
Says, each explanation is partially right, partially wrong, etc.
Even that is partial.
Yes.
So it's right.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I'm there, so.
Yeah, thank you very much for the talk. I have two questions slash comments. First of all, the question. So, it turns out that living things are not machines, and this is probably something that arose because the technology developed and it was possible to see eye-tag development, as you pointed out. And then, if I understood you correctly, the view is more space-oriented rather than particle-oriented. Like our traditional physical theories seem to be based on like particles and how they behave, whereas with this new thing, it's more about perhaps space-oriented, I guess. Processes rather than entities, perhaps. So is it like in the future of this field, are there plans or are there people who think that, let alone the living things, perhaps we have a misunderstanding of, I don't know, for instance, a volcanic mountain erupting. If it was possible somehow to tag the atoms or the molecules of this mountain as well. Maybe it turns out that we have a misunderstanding of this what we used to take for granted as thermodynamics, rules of thermodynamics, let alone the living things, but like in matter as well.
Exactly, yeah. Yes.
That's a possibility.
Yeah, what Prigozhin tried to do is based, when I said, we need to have new fundamental physics, by fundamental physics I meant exactly that. Even a single electron, this like, this is a classic quantum mechanical question. There is infinite potential. You have a single electron here, it's a wave. So what kind of wave shapes do you obtain here? So this is like a very idealized. You start with a single electron. In real world, there is nothing like this. So even beginning the question, even beginning the research with this ideal example must be changed somehow. Somehow, I have no idea, but you somehow has to begin, you have to stop isolating things. That's one of the big lessons that is coming. There is no single isolated electron ever. It is such an idealized, such a non-existent thing. And we're supposed to be doing concrete in the laboratory real things, right? But we are starting with supreme fiction. Isolate this, isolate that, So by new physics, I meant something like that, but so far, Prigozhin has some equations and he starts immediately with ensembles for them. For Prigozhin, there is no single molecule, single path. Like, he only have, I can't do it just, but you are right in the sense that even the most fundamental way of thinking, most simple examples, paradigmatic examples, methods, approaches, all of that has to be shifted. And it isn't, we know because of guys like Prigozhin, we know a way. It's not like totally mystery, etc. But so yes, mathematics of it gets complicated quite quickly. But then again, you have now sophisticated computers, etc., etc. So the complexity sciences, chaos theory, fractals, all that became somehow famous, popular at least, etc. So it's a slow change. Let's say it began in the 60s with Mandelbrot and Lorentz with the butterfly. So it's about what 60 years? It's kind of okay, 60 years, So I mean, it took chemists to like 30 years to decide whether oxygen in a burning, whether oxygen goes in or goes out. Right, the famous debate. It took Lavoisier and who was the other guy? Like two best chemists of their time debated when there is combustion, where the oxygen goes in or out. And then one of them has to die because of old age. It's like they didn't rationally agree on something. Some of them fade out. Yeah. So, really, philosophy of science is very interesting. It's nothing like the caricature picture that we have. Rational guys go in, talk, and then say, okay, you are right, you are wrong. Okay, go back to this. Nothing like that. So 30 years for that, 60 years for such complex things, I think it's okay.
Yeah, so I just one comment then. I think it seems to be appropriate here. There was a paper by Galen Strawson called, I think, Real Materialism. And the idea was, he was arguing against those who deny physicalism, like physical descriptions of mental states or whatever, and that's physicalism in philosophy of mind. And his point was, our understanding of physics is so limited, so restricted, and there's so much crazy stuff about physics that it would be absurd to just deny the view, deny physicalism, because our understanding of physics is so limited. Hence, it would be too bold of a claim to endorse, to deny physicalism anyhow. So I think it seems like he's on the right track, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know the article, but sounds good to me.
Yeah.
How much time do you have? You want to
Yeah, so we have like 10 minutes, 20 minutes more. If there are questions, we have time. Okay.
As far as I understand, I will say that the machine is too complex to be real. So there should be a simpler way that could explain how do we see that door. And you first give that example about seeing door, and it's and I can understand it's not working as taking an image, proceeding it. Is there any theory that can explain it simpler way, or I don't know, any hypothesis that could explain, or can you explain how do you see that?
There is interactivism. The thing that I think it's the best candidate in terms of this, and the way it does it. First, you have to get rid of your intuition that there are things outside and there are thoughts inside, and they correspond to each other. We get rid of it. So how are you gonna? Then why are we idealists, solipsists? Why are we just leaving that kind of problems? So let's put that aside. One other approach is to approach every object, for example, from a functionalist point of view, instead of a geometric form or shape point of view. For example, a door is not a particular kind of rectangle that is there at a particular location, etc. A door is functionally, however, it allows my muscles to move. If my muscles move near a door, like they move near a football, some problem is going to I'm sorry to look at everything functionally, not as visual geometric. What is a chair? Chair is not those particular rectangles in particular. Chair is everything that it can let your body do. For example, like what?
Very Aristotelian.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Gibsonian, but yeah.
That's the punch.
That's fine. Yeah, maybe. But so what interactivism does is takes this and applies it not just to perception, tries to ontologize it to everything. So a cylinder is this cylinder, right? A cylinder is not the shape, it is the way it lets my hand to get into this shape. With a cylinder I can do this, right? But with a pyramid, let's say I can't do that. This has like, so all what happens? I let go of correspondence. I am only looking at the interaction, the signaling inside my nervous system, interacting with tendons, muscles, and particular order of bones. For example, a cat with a different understanding of what a cylinder is, because the cylinder, the things that the cylinder affords for the cat to do are different that it affords me to do, because we have two different bodies. I don't know about Aristotle, but for example, this is totally against Plato, right? There is no one common abstract realm where we all agree. Right? An alien with a different body, we will not agree that, it is Platonic realm of ideals, etc. Because our bodies and everything works differently. So this is like a functional view.
Does it require physical interaction?
Yes, exactly. That's why you can't have a brain in a rat. You must have a body. So in this approach, pragmatic approach, body is a necessity, not some appendage that somehow the brain, if it can get it off. So, because to literally perceive, to literally do science, whatever, logic, all the ideal things that you can think of, if you don't have a body, you don't, because all interaction goes not with you and the outside world and you compare them. No, it is internal rules and structures of what types of configurations your hands can take, for example. So then they form a group structure, like literally in mathematics. What's a group like? You have one operation and you have the inverse operation, like the addition and subtraction, for example. So this is what Piaget is, in a sense, and Mark again formalized it. So basically you can build, for example, natural numbers, simple algebraic systems, simple logic, just purely considering these bodily interactions and the structures that they form. It's not totally random, right? So for example, and then people, even philosophers, are discovering bits and pieces of this. So Piaget and Mark laid down totally by 1985. But Alfenove, for example, have you heard something called sensory motor contingencies? So Alfenove, what was the other guy? Sensory motor contingencies. So for example, they published this paper in BBS, Behavior and Brain Sciences, article, and they became famous, etc. So what is a straight line? They ask. They are trying to understand vision as a philosopher and a computer scientist. What is a straight line? How can you understand this purely functionally and the rule system? Again, forget about the correspondence. There is no like a geometric object here that corresponds to the geometric object in my retina. In my retina, there's, this corresponds to this. Huh? And then somehow your brain says, okay, this is actually a straight line. So what they say in that paper is basically Gibson and Piaget. And so basically, no, it's not a straight line. It is your eye always moves. Even if you look straight, there's this motion called staccato, it oscillates like all the time, right? So what happens to a retinal image like this, if it's moving like this, if your eye is moving like this? That's number one. And then what happens if I move my eye like this? How does it change? So, this becomes something like this, for example, if I move my eyes. So out of all these possible moves, so you always have to do counterfactual. You look at all possible movements of your eye and how this retinal image changes under all those possible movements, and then you obtain an algebraic structure. There are specific rules that this thing obeys versus, for example, this thing. If I make the exact same eye movements around this object versus around this object, I can at least differentiate the two. So the main work becomes not correspondence but differentiation. I cannot perceive directly anything outside because, as I said, correspondence is gone. But I can say, okay, there is something out there under these kind of possible movements, it produces this algebraic structure or topological structure or whatever. But then there is something else outside. Under those movements, it produces some other algebraic structure, some other topology. Right?
Wow.
Kaç var?
But topology of what? Not a representation.
So it's internal. It is, you know, the brain knows this. I can send these kind of signals to the eye muscles, and something on the feedback from the retina changes. I compare those things constantly, and I make predictions. Okay, I'm going to do this. No, it doesn't do it. I don't do this. So you do not produce an ontology that's expansional, that has references to outside though. All you have is, I don't know what is outside. There might be nothing outside. But I know one thing. This thing is different than this thing. I start with a vague, like a chorba, right? A perceptual chorba. And then somehow I interact with it. I move my eye, I touch it, I do this with my body. Eye is also a body, right? If you have 4 different eyes, again, everything changes. And then I look at differences between that kind of movements, and because there are differences. And then I start to label them. Okay, this difference 1, I'm going to call straight line. This difference 2, I'm going to call crooked line. This difference 2, I'm going to call a cube. That is sphere. And then you build. That's a chair. And then again you look at your internal processes, and you can say, oh, there is sequence. I can repeat things. Or if I repeat things, maybe there is this thing called a first and a second and a third. I'm not asking again these numbers outside real, where are the numbers, where is order, etc. No, it's all internal invariant rules, internal regularities that emerge functionally. And what is vision becomes a problem. Why do I see a particular geometric shape? So again the question flips, because paradigm is flips. And then to answer that, you have to go through some hoops, but the short answer is it's basically a shortcut. If I see it as a rectangle, if I see it as a prism or sphere, then I can work with it much faster, much quicker, and speed is important in order to survive. So Turing machines and computer science, there is no timing. In any machine, there is no time basically. Right? Computer can do all those calculations, do one calculation, wait 2 days, do another. It will take a long time, but ontologically, it will accomplish the same task. There is no intrinsic time in computers, and in any machine. But here, in process metaphysics, in far-flung equilibrium thermodynamics, time is an emergent and essential thing. Without time, you can't even start building your ontology. So time, not correspondence, differentiation, hence equivalence classes of objects defined implicitly, so everything has to be implicit. You can't have explicit representation, and you can never be sure. Here's the epistemology of it. You can never be sure that these rules pick out a single object. So your theory of reference is always to classes, always to general. There is no movement from particular to the general. Again, it feels. Look at Hume or other people. Implicit philosophy is always you start particular, given, sense data, Russell, etc., and then you generalize, that you abstract. Here, opposite epistemology. You start with super general. For example, I said I have 2. Now I can differentiate between the 2. I get a name to them, but there might be other objects in the universe that under these movements of my eye will produce the same behavior, same retinal shifts, for example. For example, for a frog, this is a famous example, frog catches a fly, right? But if you throw a small black rock to the frog, it will again behave as though it's a fly. If you put the frog in front of a computer screen in a lab, and if you make a black pixel move on the screen, it will try to catch it again. So it's an equivalence class. For the frog, there is no correspondence to a fly representation with the outside fly. It is just an equivalence class of pixels, real flies, small rocks, all of these is a single entity which lets the frog send those commands to its tongue in that manner so that the tongue will make those movements, which is a structured movement. That's what it calls a fly. So this text might have infinite many objects inside it, but what it will afford to the nervous system is tongue flicking. So what the frog represents is not a fly, tongue flicking. So you see it's all internal. I don't have an outside world. And then eventually, as evolution progresses, it might split this, oh okay, small rocks is a different equivalence class. And it might differentiate the two, so it will have two different objects. Because it will have two different ways of interacting with it. So everything here is defined implicitly. And so on and so on. So you start to build a whole new ontology. So basically, this is what Mark did, using Piaget, Gibson, and some Turing, and some dynamical systems, and then Prigozhin. He knew Prigozhin, by the way, they were at the same school, so they talked a bunch. So you see everything. I mean, interactivism is a whole different kind of philosophy of language. Whole reference theory, what are sentences, what are languages, you have to, again, flip everything. Meaning is not in the verse, for example, meaning, it's totally unintuitive. But I think it's beautiful. Right? So elegant, so coherent. What did you ask? I forgot. I hope there was an answer in that band. Totally fine.
Yes.
Yeah, you're really interested in question.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Plus, I'm curious what's there.
No, okay, so
Yes, no,
one reason that the machine picture, so let's return to the machine picture. One reason that the machine picture is so prevalent is that we always work with functional equivalences. So there is a functional equivalency between the machine metaphor and the way the cell actually functions in terms of, I don't know, input, output, etc. So the question is, as we develop the machines, we get ever more approximate simulations.
Exactly.
Even though the underlying structure or the ontology is totally different, there is a functional equivalence, and there is an approximation. The question is, are there a priori significant functional differences that can never be replicated? Can we say, from today, with machines, we can never replicate due to the, so what makes the underlying metaphysics important? Because there needs to be some significant functional differences for the underlying stuff, for people to take it seriously.
Yeah, I think the keyword there is like a priori, obviously. Yeah, that's confusing me. Because I think if you go sophisticated enough, you can simulate anything. So if ChatGPT is complex enough, it can fool us for 80 years. Let's say its lifespan is 80 years. That there was a human being that lived for 80 years and did that. I think that's such a strong the simulations in that sense difficult. But if you say a priori,
I mean, from the get-go, are there some things you can say, for instance, can we say machines can never simulate or replicate reproduction, for instance? Or machines can never simulate or replicate, I mean, mechanically, so there are two different things, there are two different metaphysics. But on the one hand, the mechanical...
I mean, these are all like variations of like brain and vat or am I allowed to interact with it, for example? Am I allowed to interact with it? Am I allowed to poke it? Am I allowed to, you know what I mean? If I'm just a passive observer, I think it might be fundamentally impossible to differentiate between the simulation and the real thing. But if I
No, but my question is not like a Turing test kind of thing. My question is, why should we care about the underlying metaphysics if our the development of machines are like progressing so steadily? I can replicate the functions.
well, but then I can go in the opposite direction. I mean, it's I don't know if this is an answer to your question, but for example, the game Go, right? Artificial intelligence beat the Go champion of the world, and it's harder than chess, so it took longer to beat the Go. So are we gonna? Then I should be satisfied. Should be like, if you can do that, why should I change my metaphysics, right? Okay, but then they poked it they reduced. Go is 19 by 19, right? They reduced the Go board to 17 by 17, and let the machine play again. Totally collapsed. It's also a total new game. Right? Start learning again. Now, a living thing will never make that mistake. So is this a good thing or bad? Should we keep the old metaphysics or should I change my theory? No,
I was just trying to ask the fundamental differences between living things and machines in terms of the functional powers.
Okay, here's the answer. Living things are far from equilibrium.
Okay.
These things are never far from equilibrium. If you are far from equilibrium, there was a time I was going to talk about this. That was my second favorite example in biology stuff. If you are making machines out of processes, then they are way more stable, actually. They are way more flexible and adaptable. Why? Because you can understand that. For example, I was going to show you this picture.
I think Ishak Hoca was intending to ask you this about stability, yeah.
I don't know if you can see it, but you see these hexagonal shapes? This is just water heated from the bottom. This is nothing fancy, In your kitchen, this happens all the time. But they put some, chemicals, etc., so you can see the perfect pictures, the perfect shapes, right? If it passes the certain threshold, like, 25 Celsius, not even like 1,000 degrees or whatever, this happens, okay? But this is such a picture. So think, if I made a machine out of this, these are like, my gears, and let's assume they're like solid gears, okay? So you can make a machine out of this, and sometimes it will get broken, you can fix it, etc., etc. You have gears, that's okay. But if it is a process machine, not a substance machine whose parts are solid, like the bicycle parts. If it's something like this, actually it is something like this, and I don't know if you can see it, but this is a GIF, you cannot see it. It shows the movement of the molecules. So each of these hexagonal shapes, it's a pure movement actually, like a vortex in a water. But instead of a spiral disc, these movements produce those hexagonal things. Okay. Shape-wise, it's exactly the same. But now I know it has inner processes into it. What happens if I modify that flow? Right. Let's say I change I reduce the flow a little bit. Let's say I increase the heat a little bit. Since it's constantly invariant moving patterns, it can shift all of a sudden, say from hexagons to squares. Boom, I made a totally different machine. By just harnessing, exploiting, changing certain parameters a little bit, I came up with a whole new structure. But if it was like a bicycle gears, hexagonal, static, solid things, this option that I just did, the process machine, totally gone.
It would be broken, you are saying.
It will be broken. I have to start from scratch, I have to do this, I have to do that. But if it's invariant processes all the way down, then those small adjustments will produce drastic structural changes that will give you drastic powers if you are a cell, a frog, a cockroach, cat, human thinking. I firmly believe that the way we think is some high-level emergent process like this, and by changing certain aspects of it, certain parameters of it, that's how it's so fluid. And we can move from this to that, this to that, this to that. You can never do that static. You're gonna drop the bicycle, get a chainsaw. You're gonna drop the chainsaw, you get a table. So this is costly. It requires much more energy than a bicycle because of all these processes suck energy, you know. But if you can manage it, it's way more powerful in terms of stability, regularity, adapting. So it makes sense that nature chooses to build its living architecture. If I was nature, if I was evolution, I would definitely go for this architecture. I mean, science fiction instead of like what's that stupid movie? No. Yeah. But no, that's the Hollywood movie, Marvel, Transformers. You know those stupid things, shift things and becomes a fighter and then becomes a car, etc., etc. This is just like that, but in a very low level. And I think the signaling in our neurons, the motivations, the oscillations, etc., all are such shapeshifters. This. Somehow we have to figure out, nail down precisely how it does that. But that's the only possible, given the flexibility and the things that even a cat can do. Nature will definitely choose this one over twin machine, static, Boeing. So, but I mean, that still a machine can simulate, bypass all these. It can simulate this and that. I mean, and so yeah. A priori is.
The machine can simulate particular instances of machine or functioning, but it cannot simulate flexibility, for instance. Flexibility is a higher level functional property. Or maybe yes.
But
maybe
now,
yes.
now they begin to be flexible.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So that's I think that's a very hard question, very hard angle to approach this question. There is no knockdown argument basically. What I'm saying is there is no knockdown argument against computational theory of mind, substance ontologies of mind, belief, desire, psychology. These are strong paradigms. I mean, these are good scientific paradigms. Just like, by the way, again, philosophy of science, people know this, but standard scientists mostly don't, and outside, there is no knockdown argument against Newtonian physics. This comes as a surprise to people. No experiment can falsify Newtonian physics. You can always put atomic adjustments. You can always say, oh, the instrument, something is wrong with the instrument, or something is wrong in the solar system. You can always put the blame at the different parts of the paradigm and keep the Newtonian, three fundamental principles. I mean, that's how, for example, even Newton himself, once he formulated these three principles and the gravitational law, so four principles, universal principles for him, right? It took him 10 years to really explain a real data that the astronomers were observing. It took him like another 5 years to really come up with not a conic planet, but a planet with mass, spherical shape, and rotates. So this either he's a madman, that he struggled with something wrong, obviously wrong. No data was acknowledging his principles. No planets, there's nothing like perfect ellipse outcome. It's all proved. Because there is Jupiter here, there's Saturn here, there's Sun here. They have mass. When masses rotate, they start to be oblique, right? The real Earth is not a perfect sphere. It's like organic chemicals, So how are you going to put those into Newtonian equations? It took him like 10, 15 years. That's why he didn't publish the book, Principia. Not because he's, some news guy and, legend. No, he's struggling. All the equations he's writing are wrong. But then finally he says, well, astronomers, maybe you have to change your lens like this. And different value. So even Newtonian physics, there's no knockdown arguments. If it's a strong enough paradigm, if its expressive powers are strong enough, you cannot knock down paradigms. So other things have to kick in, other criteria have to kick in. etc., etc. So same with the computation theory of mind, basically. Do we have time?
Well, another stupid question maybe. Well, it's a very short question. It's related to this last topic. Is it possible for a machine to be an organic thing? For instance, living thing. I mean,
A machine, you said?
is it possible for a machine
A machine, sorry. Yeah?
to be a living thing? For instance, if we eliminate the soul as an option, if we explain the uniqueness of a living thing by referring to its, body structure, etc. Maybe now actual machine doesn't have this kind of, function. Maybe in future, well, we can construct some machine that realize this kind of function. So that's my question. Is it possible for a machine in the future to be a living thing?
Right now, it looks like no. From the interactivist point of view, from all these things, from far from equilibrium thermodynamics and all that, because we didn't have time to go. There's a hierarchy of self-organization, and the third one is the cell. There is, candle flame here. All connection cells are here. So we have to classify this hierarchy somehow. Okay, and the cell begins, which is called recursive self-maintenance and self-recursive maintenance. Forgot the exact. Anyways, so as far as I can understand, irreversibility is a key thing. Cells when they die, you can't bring them back. I mean, irreversibility also happens in, for example, if you have a coffee and you put 1 drop of milk to it, the milk diffuses, right? That's irreversible too. You can undo that. The milk droplet doesn't come back and then get out, right? Because it's such a complex, multiple interacting processes going on, etc. So you can't undo that. There's something fundamentally irreversible about it. So when you go to this level of complexity, every single building block must be irreversible like that for something like even the simplest living thing to be like a genuine ontological living thing, according to interactivism. No machine you have is like that. None of these are that kind of irreversible machines. So maybe my secret is irreversibility at a third level of far from equilibrium, many body system. Okay, but this is a vague answer, and nobody actually, even Mark doesn't know it. Like the perspective is, this is like best constraint. These are all constraints, not descriptions or explanations. At least I have this term level constraint on whatever future theory of living things has to satisfy. So, but then you can try to reverse engineer it. Cut my arm off. I am still me. Right? Cut my eyes off. Let's go back. Where is the me? Really me? Again, I don't know. All these parts that I cut are irreversible parts. They are composed of irreversible cells and all that. So it must be some kind of organization between irreversible entities. But then why I need irreversibility there? I can just go pure functional. Yeah, I don't know. There are thought games, thought experiments like, so a candle flame is a second level self-maintaining far from equilibrium thermodynamical system. To reach the third level, it must contribute to the conditions of its own existence. So there's a loop, there's a circularity here. If it is contributing to if it's maintaining the conditions outside that made it possible, maybe this is Aristotelian again, by the way. Okay, so that's the third level. That's how cells begin. But let's take this candle frame, second level, put it on a robotic spider. Here's my candle flame. And put this robotic spider like Brooks robot, where it detects oxygen levels, and when oxygen is low, it changes its position. So you see, the combined entity is trying to maintain the conditions of its own existence, because for the candle flame, oxygen is a condition that must be satisfied. A standard candle flame, if you take the oxygen out, it can't change its configuration, it will just die out, right? Cells are not like that. If the cell is running out of sugar, it will swim somewhere else, right? So that's the recursive self-maintenance part. So what about this guy? This is not a living thing, this is not a living thing. I combine them in this idiot manner. Do I obtain a fundamentally irreversible recursive cell maintain third degree self-organization and hence life begins? All intuitions, including Marx's intuition, says no. This is not a living thing. Still somehow, although it satisfies the formal definition here, it is Diaz saying no. But we don't know the precise reason, mechanism. Maybe this paradigm, interactivist paradigm, is insufficient for this. I mean, I think it's the best theory, but not, we don't know. No. So the formal, something is wrong with the formal definition. It seems to be too broad. The third level, the recursive, self-maintaining, blah, blah, far from equilibrium. This guy successfully captures all living organisms, from single cells to humans, but it also includes these freaks, so to speak, and we don't know a principled way of reducing, excluding these kind of guys. So
Okay. So I want to stop here, if it's okay, because let's thank our speaker. Yes. So. Thank you very much.